Hey YouTube, today I'm going to go over how to validate NodeJS API request data. So to accomplish this, I'm going to use a package called express-validator. It's important to validate data being sent to an API to make sure that it's properly formatted and is not going to cause issues by being saved to the database. We're going to implement one of the standard validators from the express-validator package, as well as implement a custom validator which checks to see if a record exists in our database before sending it. All right, let's get started. So we're going to start in VS Code by opening up a new terminal and issue the command npm install express-validator. Okay, once it's done, we can close our terminal for now. Let's go into our books.js route file. So inside of books.js, we're going to import two components from the express-validator library. So const open a curly bracket, we want to import check, and we want to import validation result. Set that to equal require express. So instead of importing the entire library, we're only grabbing these two pieces. Now inside of router.post, what we're going to do is we're going to add a parameter in between the URI and our asynchronous callback function. So we're going to add a comma there and add a empty array there. And then inside of the empty array, we want to check that the rating field of our post body is numeric. IsNumeric is a built-in function of express-validator, so we can use this to check to see if the rating is actually a number and not a string or any other kind of field. We also need to check to see if there are any validation errors, so we're going to add some space before the parameters for DynamoDB. And we're going to say const errors equals validation result. And we're going to pass in our request. And then if not errors dot is empty, which is basically checking to see if there are any errors. We're going to send back a response with a status code of 400, which is bad request. And then send back a JSON payload with an errors field and set that to errors.array, which will convert our errors to an array. Okay, so before we start our API and check this, I realized I made a mistake above. Instead of require express here, we were on a require express validator. So let's save that file, open our terminal, issue the command npm run dev, start the API. Okay, so let's head over to Postman. Now we're going to use our postbooks request here, and let's change the ID to 6 to keep it unique. Change my new book to my new book 3 so we can see that in the data. And let's add a rating field here, and let's set the value to 4. Go ahead and send this. And we should receive a 201 created because we set the rating to 4. We don't see any change in the behavior. However, let's change this to 7 and change my new book to 4. And if I change the rating to 3, all typed out as a string, and click send, you can see we do receive a status of 400 bad request, and we can get an array of our errors back here. Now, express-validator has a number of built-in functions that you can use to check a field, but you can also create custom validators where you can write your own logic to check to see if the object that's being sent in passes your own checks. So since this is an array, let's add a new line here. And we're going to check the ISBN. And instead of isNumeric, we're going to say custom, which says that it's a custom validator. It accepts an asynchronous callback function. Pass that into an arrow function. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to scan the DynamoDB table for a pre-existing ISBN number before we save this. Now, as fair warning, I do not recommend doing this in production environment because the scan operation is very resource intensive and very costly, but I'm doing this simply as an example. So const params equals table name, set our table name to NodeJS API as we have done before, and we'll say let books equals await doc client dot scan, pass in our params, and set this to a promise. And let's say let existing book equals books dot items dot find. Pass in our book here. Book dot ISBN is equivalent to the value that's being sent in. And then we will say if there is an existing book, then we want to return promise dot reject, and then say that book already exists. Save this. Now let's head back over to Postman to test this new logic here. I'm going to change the ID to 8, although I don't think the ID of 7 actually saved. And we'll set a rating of 5. And this ISBN should already exist in the database, so this should test our logic properly. Let's go ahead and send this. And we can see we receive back a custom message that the book already exists on the parameter of ISBN. So even though we only have 2 checks here, you can see if you have a rather large data model where you need to check the various fields on that model, adding more checks as middleware in this manner is going to eventually make this code very, very hard to read and follow. So what I would like to do is take a moment, and what we're going to do is we're going to move this into a separate file. So in our routes, let's go ahead and create a new file. Call this books-validators.js. We first want to import that check component that we did before. Express-validator. And we're going to need to bring in our AWS code, just like we did in the books route, since we are using the custom validator, which utilizes the AWS SDK. I'm going to import the SDK here as well. AWS SDK. Okay, add some new space here. We have our document client. Now we're going to export post books validators equals, this is going to be an array. And then we're just going to go back into books. We're going to copy from our post handler everything inside of this array that we just typed. Let's cut that instead of copy. And let's paste it inside of here. Save this file. Let's head into books. I'm going to remove this array here. We're going to change this here shortly. Let's head back towards the top and let's import our new file. Validators equals require, pass in the relative path for book validators. And now down here inside of that area where we had the array, we can now say validators dot post books validators, just like so. And now we don't actually need the check here since our validators are all in their own little file. You will still need the validation results since that's what we need to use to check to see if there are any validation errors. Okay, so let's save this. Head back into Postman. Let's change the ISBN number to something different. And let's change our rating to 3, all spelled out as a string. Send this. And we still get the same errors, which means the code was imported properly. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share the video. I'm also live right here on YouTube every Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central. For channel updates or to get in touch with me, follow me on Twitter at BrianMMDev or join my Discord using the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.